I do not want to see our sovereignty and the national identity melt away in the genderless, supranational, international structures, especially those in Brussels. And I certainly do not intend to sacrifice the essence of Slovakia, which is based on more than 1,000 years of Christian tradition of family as a fundamental component of our society, and strong anti-fascism. That is how I am. I am behind the important amendment of the Slovak Constitution, which defines marriage as a unique union between a man and a woman. I submitted to Parliament a further constitutional amendment concerning the existence of only two genders or the conditions for the adoption of children. As a strong leftist, I have no problem spending the night with the people on the production line to support higher night shift allowances or wage increases. As an anti-fascist politician, I felt the need to pay my respect in May this year in Moscow to more than 60,000 soldiers who died during the liberation of Slovakia. If such, ladies and gentlemen, if such sovereignty and values-based behavior is a crime in Europe, we are on a very bad and dangerous path. If a political activist of the Slovak opposition wanted to assassinate me for my political positions, we are on an even more dangerous path. Value conflicts and disputes over the understanding of national sovereignty and identity do not only take place at the national level. In the EU, together with my friend Viktor Orbán, I clearly oppose mandatory quotas and the wrong approach to illegal migration. At a time when nuclear energy was taboo in the European Union, I pushed for the completion of 2 more nuclear units in Slovakia. I am an uncompromising advocate of respect for the rules of international law. Slovakia does not have enough fighter jets, missiles, drones, and ammunition to enforce its ideas by military force. If we withdrew Slovak troops from Iraq, we did so because the war was a flagrant violation of international law with a huge civilian casualties. I am talking about the same gross violation of international law now in relation to the war in Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been in politics since 1991. I mean in top Slovak politics. And I cannot remember so much nervousness and aggressiveness accumulated in the international community. From outbreaks of wars, to trade wars, to disrespect in international politics. The European Union, instead of playing an honest peacekeeping role and giving priority to diplomatic efforts, is subject to this nervousness and aggressiveness in equal measure. Any opinion different from the only correct one that is mandatory, pursued particularly by big players in the European Union, is immediately suppressed. All we have to do is to express, for instance, a different opinion about the president of Ukraine, or to refuse to give arms to Ukraine despite the fact that we are helping it in every other way, or to call the strategy of the European Commission to stop all energy supplies from Russia as economically damaging and undermining the EU's competitiveness. The reaction will come immediately. Most recently, Slovakia and Hungary have received a message from a particularly nervous new German chancellor. In short, his message to us was, if you do not obey and you continue with your sovereign positions, if you do not support one single mandatory political opinion concerning Ukraine and the obligation to spread hatred against Russia, you will be punished. For example, by suspension of EU funds or withdrawal of voting rights. European Union, no one in a peaceful and democratic project should have the right to treat other EU member states in this way, regardless of their size and economic strength. The strength of the European Union lies in compromises, mutual respect, and the rejection of the dictates of the stronger against the weaker. Slovakia is not criticized today for the gross violation of human rights, the rule of law, or democracy. That is what had here in 2020-23, when we were in the opposition illegally arrested and accused, when the mouths of the free media were shut, when innocent people were dying in detention. Where were the great democracies and the European Union as a whole then? If they have no realistic response to the war in Ukraine today, which is a country has been the victim of the senseless prolongation of this military conflict, if the answer is only to build a new iron curtain between Europe and Russia, which even the United States does not want, they cannot continue in their nervousness by suppressing the sovereignty of individual member states on legitimate issues. Ladies and gentlemen, we may have to expect unprecedented decisions, such as, for example, the abolition of the right of veto of EU member states and its replacement by qualified majority voting. The time may indeed come when there will be punishments for having a sovereign opinion on EU competitiveness or the war in Ukraine. One thing I do know, however, for sure, and before that thing, I want to war and take this